How's it going, everyone? It is Friday, so that means it is Nick at Nighttime, the non-spoiler show about the books we got this past week, October 20th, 2021. Stay tuned. Welcome back, guys. So before we get into the books, I just want to give a big thank you to everybody out there watching right now. We just hit our 400 subscriber mark. It's unbelievable. So I just really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you everybody for watching, supporting, leaving comments, hitting the like button, following me week after week. So it really means a lot to me. And let's just keep going and see how far we can take this. So we're going to go into the big two as always. We're going to start with Trials of Magneto. This is issue number 3. This is that B cover with Scarlet Witch on the cover. So I think it's a pretty interesting cover. So a tiny spoiler for the book. Nothing really big because they've been hinting at it if you've been reading this so far, is Scarlet Witch dead? Is she not? Is she in some other kind of plane? We've touched base with her in a few panels in the other issues that maybe she's just kind of trapped in some kind of spiritual realm. She didn't quite know if this is what death was, or, is she been kidnapped or sent somewhere? It certainly seems like she's been murdered from the other X-Men and mutants and whatnot. So they're just trying to figure out where she is, and she's trying to figure out where she is. So we get a little explanation in the back of this book as to, who she's kind of coming across in this like spiritual plane. And it's really kind of weird and unusual. And I feel like it's just trying to be more complicated than it needs to be and more like secretive than it needs to be. We have our cast of characters. We have the Avengers. We have X-Men. We have everybody trying to figure all this out, kind of mourning the death of Scarlet Witch. And so in this issue too, we have this side distraction with these different kaiju monsters that are attacking. I just feel like there's a lot going on. We have Magneto acting really strange. We have Scarlet Witch. Is she dead? Is she not? We have this giant team up with the X-Men and the Avengers and whatnot. We have kaiju monsters all over the place. We got everybody acting strange. There's just a lot going on in this book, and I'm not interested in any of it, I don't think. So I'm trying to figure out what's relevant and what's not. And I think the big question at the end of this book is who Scarlet Witch is kind of interacting with. Who's this like white cloaked person that we were teased in the first couple issues that may have killed her? And she's been interacting with this person like in this spiritual realm ever since. And so they do reveal that in this book, so I will say that. But who cares? Who cares? I don't know. If you really, really love this book, please go in the comments and just kind of like help me out with this and where it fits with the main X-Men run, with Inferno and everything else. I feel like we have such high quality books in that realm, like House of X, Powers of X, Inferno, that books like this just don't live up to that expectation that I have right now for X-Men. So kind of disappointed in that book, kind of disappointed, but we'll keep going because why not? We're already 3 issues in. Why would I stop? Death of Doctor Strange. This is issue number 2. So this is kind of another one, Jed McKay. So the first issue was not very impactful. And what I mean by that is a book entitled Death of Doctor Strange. I kind of have this I imagine Doctor Strange kind of going out in glory. You know what I mean? He's kind of like in some kind of giant battle or whatever, and he like sacrifices himself, something, you know what I mean? And the first issue was just kind of blah. It was just kind of like, okay, so he dies. It kind of goes through a day in the life, and then all of a sudden he's just kind of murdered, and we don't quite know why or how. We do have a little revelation at the end. There's like other version of Doctor Strange comes out, and he kind of explains how that is possible. And I think it's a pretty clever way. I mean, if I was a Sorcerer Supreme, I'd probably like put backups, like create some kind of a backup or contingency plan if I was actually murdered or killed. But have we ever seen this backup plan manifest before? I mean, this can't be the first time Doctor Strange has died in comic books. So is this a known thing? I don't know. I've never heard of it. And these other characters in the book seem to be surprised by this appearance of a different Doctor Strange as well. So there was that, and then we get this other villain group that kind of attacks because Doctor Strange, he's the Sorcerer Supreme, and he's protecting reality. And so without him gone, all the people that he's held at bay all this time have nothing stopping them from kind of attacking, or some of them might be, scared of what else might come out, and they might be fleeing. So you have all these different powers rising up. We saw it in X-Men, I think it was X-Men issue number 4, like the Headless Horseman cover with Cyclops, of Nightmare invading, and so he's kind of free to roam around New York City because Doctor Strange is not around to hold him back. So we have more of that kind of theme in these books here. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. We get a cool little collaboration battle with like different kinds of X-Men with this group that comes and attacks. And so it was okay. It was okay. I feel like these two books are just not really doing it for me, not really exciting me at all. And I don't know. I think the hooks at the end are not really doing enough to kind of keep me interested in the books. But again, we're a couple issues in. Some people are liking them. We got decent writers and some decent art on them. So it's hard to drop after 2 or 3 issues because you don't quite understand the grand scheme of things yet. So perhaps we're going to keep going with these. Maybe there'll be like LCS flip throughs before I buy them or something like that. Not sure. Thor number 18 from Donny Cates, got that cool Throg cover. This was another one. I hate to be on like a Marvel bashing run right now, but wasn't too impressed with Marvel this past week. And this is kind of the same thing. So, we have Thor trying to get help everywhere. We have the fact that he's the king of Asgard. And he can't be the hammer of Asgard all the time. So Mjolnir's getting heavy. We've been saying this a week after week after week or month after month. He's trying to get help from everybody that might be able to help. The Avengers, his parents, Odin, trying to figure out what's going on. And now he comes to Loki. He needs to kind of find Mjolnir. It's gone missing. He needs to figure out what's going on. He needs a spy. And so, Throg is on the cover. We do have a Throg appearance in here. He's kind of doing his own thing after the Donald Blake incident in the last arc or two ago, something like that. So we have Thor and Throg kind of hashing out what the plan is. And we have they rebooted Defenders and Defenders number 1, I don't know, a month or two ago, something like that. We have a very similar team creation like montage in that book too. So Throg puts together a team of people. I won't spoil who they are. And this team is going to go out and help Thor find Mjolnir and try to get some answers for him. But, the art didn't really do it for me. The story's not too interesting. I like the concept of the story. I like the idea of Mjolnir getting heavy and Thor has to kind of, weigh the options. Which one is he going to be? Is he going to be the king or is he going to be the hammer? And if he's the hammer, can he be both? And, Mjolnir's getting heavy. What does it mean? Does it mean he has to pass it on at some point? He doesn't have any kids. His reign as king has been miserable for Asgard, for the galaxy, whatever. So, I like the idea of where they're going. I just don't like the execution of it so far. So maybe he's going to rein it in here soon. But Thor number 18, I feel like that whole run has been kind of going down. I feel like the first dozen issues or so were pretty solid. Ever since then, it's just kind of been going through the motions. So we'll see where it goes. Not the last, because we got several Fear State books, which are going to be interesting to get into. But we have DC Black Label. Joe Hill House Comics presents Refrigerator Full of Heads. Now, I actually really liked Basket Full of Heads. Same group, different creative team, but it was a Hill House comic. It came out, a year or two ago, something like that. And I liked that one because it didn't have just this weird mystical heads in a basket that can still talk or they're still alive kind of gimmick. They actually had a really interesting story underneath everything that kind of drove the whole story. And then the axe and everything was like something they threw on top that kind of spiced it up a little bit. So in this one, it's only issue number 1, so we don't really quite know what's going on. But what I will say is the art in this book is really nice. I really enjoy comics where they ignore the backgrounds. I really enjoy comics that don't ignore the backgrounds, rather. You can stare at each panel in this book, and you can see that the artist just really took their time. They put in some background stuff, whether it's trees, whether it's like a garage, parking lots, whatever, and there's just stuff everywhere to look at. So I really appreciate art that doesn't just ignore the backgrounds, that doesn't just pay attention to the foreground, rather. And so I really enjoyed that. It did have the mystical elements that we saw in Basket Full of Heads. So we have our axe. Spoiler, somewhat of a spoiler. So this is a volume 2. It's the same axe. And so it has a mystical property. If you kill something with it, it doesn't really stay dead. And so you kind of learn what that means as we go on. And we have a really weird way of learning that lesson here. So it's a new cast of characters. It's a little bit ambiguous as whether or not they understand the power of this axe. It kind of feels like they do and they don't at the same time. We have some weird burglars in the very beginning of this that are looking for some like mystical weapons and things like that, and they kind of test it out and show it. I'm wondering, perhaps I'm just forgetting, I'm wondering if maybe this couple we meet later were the burglars, and maybe they're kind of trying to find these different relics and things like that. But it's an interesting thing. So we're going to see how complex the story is going to be. Is it just going to be a gore fest? Is it going to be a volume 2 gimmick that kind of plays on the coattails of volume number 1. I hope not, because I liked volume number 1. Refrigerator Full of Heads, pretty interesting, cool, shocking ending right there. I think we're going to enjoy that book, so I'm going to keep going with it. We are going over into Fear State. So, well, actually, before that, we're going to go over to Catwoman Lonely City, because I feel like Fear State, I need to be in the frame of mind, because they're all connected, and I'm going to get them confused. So, Lonely City Catwoman, Cliff Shang. I hope I'm saying that right. This is a pretty interesting book. It's like an oversized Black Label book from DC. It's kind of square bound. So there's that. So you got to deal with all that. Basically, there was some big tragedy that happened. A bunch of heroes died, including Batman and some Robins and stuff. And Catwoman lived and was sent to prison. This is a story of her getting out of prison, getting parole. Harvey Dent is like the mayor. He's kind of taken over. Gotham is actually in a slightly better place, I suppose. And they have all these like bat cops with kind of like Terminator type analysis when they look at people. They can, probable cause X%, need to, recording automatically. It has that visor view, that red hue that we see like in Terminator movies. It's kind of magistrate-ish, but they don't refer to the magistrate. If I don't remember them referring to them in this book. I think they just call them bat cops. So it's kind of the story of her getting out of prison, kind of getting reacclimated into Gotham. Trying to, find money, or make money rather. She kind of finds some old people she used to team up with here and there. There's some funny moments in here. She's older. She can't really, jump rooftop to rooftop as easily as she could before. So it's kind of a struggle of an older Catwoman trying to get her bearings. And we kind of learn more about some things that she's trying to uncover that Batman hinted towards. I don't want to spoil too much. But she got some kind of last words, and she's trying to figure out what those last words mean. But we learn that she's not really the only one trying to figure that out. So, so it's basically, who are your friends? Who are your enemies? How can she kind of survive in this new world? She's getting older. Can she actually play that role still? So pretty interesting. The art was pretty good. It was, I don't know, in this fast-paced world of Batman we're living in right now with Fear State, and the Tynan run and whatnot, and Joker War. These kinds of books are nice. They're kind of slower, and they kind of focus on more than one character in a different way. So I've kind of liked it. I don't know. I'm interested to see what you guys thought of this one if you picked it up. So let me know in the comments what you thought of Lonely City Catwoman number 1. So we're getting into Fear State now. So I'm probably going to start with Batman 115 because they're all extremely connected. So Batman 115, first off, I got that connecting cover. This is the issue number 1 of the next 3 connecting covers. And I believe it's going to be 15, 16, 17, and Tynan's off the run after that. Joshua Williams picks up after that. So that will be interesting. So we're going right into Fear State. So the first thing you're going to notice right away is the art changes. So it's not Jorge Armendez on all of it. It's Clunan or whoever else is on this. So you see that immediately. You're reading through the book, and you're like, this is not the art that I'm used to. And then all of a sudden you get to some pages and you're like, that's what I'm talking about. And then the next page it switches back. So that's going to piss you off immediately. If you're me, it would. So you get that right off the bat. We do pick up with Batman and Miracle Molly trying to, Miracle Molly has an idea of how Scarecrow is kind of using the sphere to control Gotham and what his next steps are. So she's kind of introducing that idea to Bruce. And taking him around, showing him some of the tech that she's developed while she was with her group and everything. And so they're kind of exploring that, which was kind of fun. The other little story that's in here is basically Scarecrow and Peacekeeper 01 teaming up a little bit here, and Scarecrow is really continuing to manipulate him. He's really his weapon. It's kind of his final act. To kind of turn this guy completely insane. He's already taken out the contingency plan built to take him out. So Simon Saint is flipping out right now. And so Scarecrow has some more stuff he has in store for Peacekeeper. So interesting book. We have some Ivy appearances in here and whatnot. We have a little Batgirl's backstory in here too. So, Ivy's playing a big role in all these different books, and we're going to touch on that in Catwoman here in a minute. But we have kind of 2 personality states of Ivy, one underneath, kind of with her roots dug into Gotham City. And we have a little bit more immature one up there in Alleytown with Catwoman and her gang up there. So we're going to touch base with Catwoman next, 'cause I think that makes sense. This book is okay. I've enjoyed every issue up until this issue, partly because of the art and partly because of the direction they're going with the story. And so, I don't know. I really enjoyed Batman until this issue. And so we'll see if the next issue can do any better. Catwoman, with that Frizzing cover, you always got to get Catwoman B. You just always do. So this is issue number 36. So we have Magistrate invading Alleytown, and Catwoman is trying to kind of get her forces together for some kind of a defense against this attack that's coming, because they're after Ivy, and we have this immature version of Ivy up there, so she has some ideas of how to get her out kind of without them noticing or giving them trouble while they're trying to extract Ivy, right? So Ivy gets her team together, and they have some big face-off and whatnot. We learn about how, because Peacekeeper 01 and Peacekeeper X, they're all kind of part of the same program. It's kind of like the Bourne Identity in a way, you know what I mean? So like they have all these soldiers that they've trained up, and they can kind of swap in and out here and there or something like that. You know what I mean? There's not just one person. And they hint at that in here, and I won't tell you who it's with, because it's at the very, very end. But if they send in like a super soldier, let's say, the Magistrate does, and that soldier gets taken out, they have a replacement ready right then. So you learn a little bit about that in here. So basically, this is just the plan of Catwoman, of Selina, and her plan of kind of getting her forces together and getting Ivy out of there. So we learn a little bit about what all that is. We learn a little bit about the Magistrate's contingency plans when it comes to losing soldiers and things like that. And that's pretty much it. So the tie-in is a little bit weak, I think, here. And I think my dislike for Batman is bleeding over into all the other DC books that are related to Fear State. And Catwoman kind of suffered from that as well. It was a little bit better than Batman, I think. I really, really enjoyed the art in that book and everything. And yeah, I don't know. Fear State's kind of wearing me out a little bit, which brings us into Nightwing. So Nightwing 85, another Fear State tie-in. So this book is the first few issues of this run I thought were really, really good. And then we got into the Fear State stuff. And so, Nightwing and Batgirl Barbara are going around trying to take out the imposter Oracle. And so they have a bunch of leads, and they kind of, start trying to head to where they can intercept them, take them out, stop the broadcast, which is a false broadcast happening everywhere. She warns all the allies what's going on. And so it's basically their struggle to get to the final boss, right? And so they've kind of identified through some clever tactics where they need to go, and they're going to be heading in that direction. And then we get kind of a shocking, explosive ending there that might lead to some tragedy. So we're going to see where Nightwing goes. Not a whole lot to say about that. It's just another tie-in. It's fun to kind of figure out how these all layer. It's like, okay, during this, Ivy's over here with Catwoman, and she's getting her army together to fight the Magistrate, while Batman and Miracle Molly are trying to understand Scarecrow's tactics and trying to subdue Peacekeeper. And then, okay, what's happening over here? So it's fun to play that game, try to piece it all together. And so that's the most enjoying part. That gives me more enjoyment than like reading these books individually. So if you're not reading all the books, you're not going to get the full picture, which I think is part of the fun. So I'm trying to keep that in mind while I'm reading DC books right now, especially Batman DC books. So the last DC book is actually Superman, Son of Kal-El. This is issue number 4, Tom Taylor. This book was actually pretty good. This is probably my second favorite book of the run so far. The first issue I thought was great. And then, the second and third issue had some controversy behind them. No worries at all there. And this one was pretty cool. So we have basically we have Clark leaving the planet. He's been warning us about that for quite a while now. Jonathan's going to take over. He's trying to figure out what kind of a person he's going to be, what kind of a Superman he's going to be. He starts, making new friends here and there, and learning more about their cause, and trying to figure out what's the right thing to do in those instances. We have an attack on the Kent house, which is, I thought it was done really, really well, using a method or a character rather that they introduced a couple issues ago, which I thought was pretty cool. We have almost like I forgot, was it Days of Future Past, something like that. One of those X-Men movies where Quicksilver comes up to the mansion and he runs through and kind of saves everybody while it's exploding. We have that same kind of thing in this book, which I thought was pretty cool. And I enjoyed the dialogue. I didn't enjoy the faces or the art in there because they had a lot of cool opportunities to make that really meaningful, make that really cool. But I think they missed it on the art there. So sorry, Danielle, did not enjoy the art on that section, but I liked a lot of the cool moments in here where, you got to think, and I didn't know this as being a relatively newer DC and this type of DC reading. If the Kent's house is attacked, what's the response team look like? And so we get an impressive little plan there, right? If the Kents ever get attacked, who shows up to kind of help protect it? So it was a funny interaction there about what's going on. We also learned a little bit more about Jay. And so, what kind of person he is and what he's been up to, things like that. And then we also get a little villain appearance in here too towards the end. So overall, I think it was a pretty good issue. It's probably my second favorite of the run so far. It's only 4 issues. So I actually enjoyed it. And that cover is awesome too. Love that cover. So that is it for the big 2. We have a bunch of random indies, which our indie stack is half as big as our big 2 stack. So something's going on. Something is not right. We have Ed Brierson on Beyond the Breach number 4 from Aftershock. This, again, like Son of Kal-El, this was my second favorite issue of this run, of these 4 issues here. So in this one, it's an explainer issue, which I think we needed. I think we needed it a little bit sooner, but we'll see at the end of this if they can kind of bring it all together. I think this run is only 5 issues. And if it's only 5 issues, the explainer issue being number 4 doesn't really give me confidence about how this will close. But I'm going to give Ed the benefit of the doubt, and hopefully he can close it out well. So we have our hero from another dimension. His whole backstory is fleshed out in this issue, which was needed because he's been in this book for 3-4 issues now, and we didn't really know much about him. We got hints here and there. The same thing goes with the people that are attacking him, or the monsters, or the aliens, and all the crazy stuff that's all over the place. We get a full explainer about where all that comes from, who he is, who he's fighting, why he is the way he is, and why they're tracking him down. So if you wanted all those answers, you get it in this book, and they do it in a pretty cool way. And the rationale, the reasoning why everything is the way it is, why things are kind of merging the realities and whatnot, it's not totally explained as to how that happens, but we understand how we got here, but the mechanics behind that are a little bit foggy still. So the end of the book, we do get this kind of like no way out situation. So it'll be interesting to see how they can kind of manage that. Again, I think this is only one more issue. The next issue and comes out in November, and there's some notes on here. I'm just skimming through them real quick to see if they're gonna tell us anything about it being the final issue. And I don't think they do, so we're just gonna kind of ride this one out. If this was ongoing, I would probably be 50-50 on dropping it, because I don't know. It lost me on issue 2 and 3. It reeled it back in for issue number 4, so I appreciate that. If it's only one more issue, I don't know how the heck they're gonna wrap it up, because in my opinion, they are nowhere near an ending for this story. So there's just a lot of weird things in there. If you're following the Cerebros, Verno at the Cerebros, go check out his review video. It's probably going to come out this next week, probably on Sunday, Monday, something like that. We go over this book in some more detail. So check out his channel for some more thoughts on Beyond the Breach from Ed. We got Not All Robots, Mark Russell, Mike Diodato Jr. This is issue number 3. I love that cover too. Such a cool cover. If this book does one thing really well, it's the art. It's all the different characters. All the characters in this book are so unique and distinct, and they have their own personalities. And when they enter, you remember them better, I think. You remember the father. You remember the kids. You remember the neighbors. You remember the certain robots. I mean, these are all faceless robots, but when you see them, you remember their actions and attitudes in the previous books and panels, which I think is very, very interesting, because sometimes you have a hard time doing that when you have a large cast. And so, this story so far is a bubbling pot. At some point, it's going to blow up, and every issue gets a little bit closer and a little bit closer, but we have some more human element in this book. We have the new version of the droids coming out. They're fully customizable. They're a little bit more subordinate, and so you can kind of program them to do certain things, or have them not so advanced like AI wise, so they're completely self-thinking and have all the depression and problems that the first versions have. which leads to some pretty hilarious moments in this book. So, you can have ones that look just like anybody else that you know. So, craziness ensues, right? And so we get some pretty funny moments in here. So I feel like the robot-human tension is ever growing, but now there's also this like human-on-human tension that's growing as well. So I think it's pretty cool. The art is amazing in this book. The shadows, the colors, the paneling, everything is great. The lettering is great. I love where this book is going. It was probably my favorite book for issue number 1 that month. Issue number 2 was probably in the top 3 that month. And this issue was great as well. Not All Robots, AWA Upshot, Mark Russell, killing it. Killing it. Going over to Boom Studios, we have Eat the Rich, Sarah Gailey, we have Bach, and we have Tivov, I think. This is issue number 3. I got that B cover because I love that B cover right there. I think I got the B cover for the majority of these. So this book was interesting because I loved issue number 1. It had, just a crazy ending to it. Issue number 2 I criticized because it was too convenient. They explained everything immediately. She asked one question to one person she knew. They spilled all the beans, and it was just very, very convenient that she got all those answers. And we as the reader got those answers too. The ending was supposed to have this weird hook at the end to kind of make you feel nervous, like you just got in trouble from the principal. It's like your mom grabbing you by the ear and pulling you over. Hey, come here, we got to talk, that kind of thing. And it just didn't do anything for me. It kind of pays out in this book here. She's not like in trouble or anything, but it's the mom making sure that she's okay with what she saw and what she understood. And she kind of explains it even more. And they hint at perhaps like a supernatural phenomenon that happens. And so you gotta say to yourself, like, why do they eat people? Like, what's in it for them? What is going on? We understand why the servants might want to do these kinds of things, but why do the rich eat their servants? Like, what is keeping them from what's keeping them on that tradition, right? And so we kind of learn, I think we get a little supernatural ending to this book. And so if you agree, let me know down below, or perhaps I'm just putting that in there. The art in this book is really interesting. I said earlier that I really enjoy books that have a lot of detail and a lot of things going on in the background. So you get a lot of things to look at. This book is the opposite of that, but it's still beautiful and it still works totally. The backgrounds are very washed out. Even the foregrounds don't have a lot of detail, but there's detail and coloring where it needs to be. It's just very interesting how they do the art in this book. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed this one too. It kind of piqued my interest more. Issue number 2 turned me off completely. Issue number 3 piqued my interest again. So way to go. Way to go with Eat the Rich. I really enjoyed it. On to one of my favorite books of the month so far, which was Ice Cream Man, issue number 26, W. Maxwell Prince, again with the B cover, because that's just a creepy ass cover, So it's just like the face is sideways. What I didn't know at the time was this whole book is a sideways book. So when you open it up, it actually instructs you, turn the page clockwise. And then the whole rest of the book is read like this right here. So flip the page up vertically. With books like Echolands, we're getting kind of used to these different orientations here. So we have a gigantic tree. We have a man climbing down it, and he's going over his family tree. And he's doing that because he's unsatisfied with his life. He's got substance abuse problems. He feels like this hum, he calls it, inside of his chest. He's kind of depressed all the time. And he's trying to figure out if he can kind of dig far enough in the past, maybe it'll help explain why he is the way he is. And I think it's an extremely relatable premise. I feel like everyone's just kind of the product of the previous generation, obviously. And if they had nothing but problems all the time, then maybe, they should explore that and they can use that to kind of help better themselves. So it's a book that's extremely relatable. It's extremely straightforward. I like the way that he breaks down his grandparents in here. They're really interesting. They have a lot of demons. But it's not like they don't have reasons to not have these demons in a way. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny. They're just really human people. And that's the kind of the lesson at the end of this. Nobody's really perfect. Everyone has a reason why they're acting the way they are. And you know this. I mean, if you talk to anybody for, more than 30 seconds, and you have a real conversation with them, you realize that everyone's just piled with just all this tragedy and stuff. And we're just doing all we can do to kind of go forward, right? And make the best out of all the situations. So, extremely straightforward book. I think it's classic Ice Cream Man. There's tons of little Easter eggs in this book everywhere. And the gimmick about, not really a gimmick, but the whole thing about them turning the book sideways and doing it vertically, it's really kind of fun. There's probably a lot of symbolism there about him climbing down. And I won't kind of spoil the end about what's going on there, but it doesn't just stop at the tree. He goes into the roots, he goes underground, he meets some people there too, and he kind of has a plan for the future. So it's not like this dark, depressing Ice Cream Man story. It's got a lot of that in it, but it doesn't have the same kind of ending that most Ice Cream Man books have, or even Ha-Ha books. So I really like this issue. It was one of my favorite issues of Ice Cream Man that they have, probably because of the orientation, the creativity that was involved with putting all that together, the meaning, the point of the story in here. It really kind of grabbed me, and I can really relate to that. So really, really enjoyed Ice Cream Man. So if you've been shying away from Ice Cream Man because maybe you think it's a little bit too complex, or it's too ambiguous, or whatever, it's too full of metaphors, this book is very straightforward. It's probably the most straightforward issue we've ever had. So that's what I got this week. I think that's all that I read. So we're going to go over, like we do, if you only can pick up a few books, what do you get? Ice Cream Man, sure bet. For sure, I would get that one too. If you liked Eat the Rich, I would pick this one up too, because I feel like it's heading in a direction that's promising, and I can't wait for it. Not All Robots was great. Son of Superman was the same way as Eat the Rich. I kind of piqued my interest a little bit more. The Fear State stuff, you have to work your way through. That's up to you if you like that or not. All the Marvel books I wouldn't really recommend right now. Trials, Thor, Doctor Strange, not really on my radar, not really in my favorite books. But I'll probably say Refrigerator Full of Heads, because it was just a fun little horror book that reminded me of the first volume. And hopefully they're going to have a cool, complex, interesting story kind of woven in with this whole supernatural thing. So those are the books that I would pick up, and I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know down below what your favorite books of the week were. If I had any questions about these books, or you guys can clarify anything, or just comment about anything, do so down below. I love reacting to your guys' comments and keeping the conversation going. Again, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification for future videos. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the comments.